Almost. Major. Holy fucking shit, this is major! Hello and welcome to this week's episode of Almost Major, where we talk about the many major studios and the films they released, and today we're on our 7th film of our New Line Cinema in the 1980s miniseries. My name is Kevin Tudor. I'm here with Charlie Nash.
Hello.
And Bryden Doyle.
Hello.
And joining us is a super special guest from the Suspense Is Killing Us podcast from Viva Physical Media. It is Emalie Soderback. How are you?
I am awesome. How are you?
I'm pretty good. Yeah, I'm fine.
That's good.
Since the last time we recorded, I have broken my toe while I was at work, so I've been out of work for almost 2 weeks. So I mean,
oh my gosh.
So like, yay, I can stay home and not have to work, but boo, I have to stay home and not have to work. So,
how's your toe?
It's fine. It's the thing of like, after the first day, it was like honestly fun, but it's just like I can't walk really, and if I walk, I get exhausted. So it's like I'm technically like injured, but I don't feel injured, so it's just like annoying. It's just like I want to get out there. And,
well, it's an excuse to watch like 1,000 movies, so.
Mm-hmm.
That is true. Yes. I started watching The Cave from 2005 last night. I deserve pain, but that's fine. And today we are talking about Smithereens from 1982. This premiered at Cannes in May 1982. It was also at TIFF in September 1982 and released on November 19th, 1982. I'm not sure the theater numbers. I'm not sure how much it made, but it was a budget overall of $105,000. Top 5 films that weekend was just, imagine there being a weekend like this. The Empire Strikes Back, First Blood, Creepshow, E.T. the Extraterrestrial, and An Officer and a Gentleman. Also,
that's just
holy shit.
That's just silly.
Yeah,
that's just dumb. Smithereens had no chance.
No. Also, while I was writing that, I was just like, I guess I'll put The Extraterrestrial. Who was just like, hey, have you seen E.T. the Extraterrestrial? I'd be like, are you a cop? Like, why are you calling it that? Number one song in the U.S. this week is Up Where We Belong by Joe Cocker and Jennifer Warnes. And number one song in Canada this week is The Look of Love by ABC. Plot description from Google. Wild teen Rin, played by Susan Berman, trades New Jersey for New York City, where she hopes to join what's left of the punk rock culture. She spends time hanging out with Paul, played by Brad Wren, another young city transplant, but he's too safe for Wren's taste, which run to narcissistic rockers. This is straight from Google, I'm sorry. She finds one of these in Eric, played by Richard Hell, who's about to cut a record in Los Angeles. Before long, Wren is planning to accompany Eric when he heads west, but it's soon clear she's put trust in the wrong person. That doesn't sound like a plot description. That just sounds like I talked about the entire film from start to finish.
That's it. That's the movie. All right, next movie. Just kidding.
Yeah. Story by Susan Seidelman and Ron Naiswainer, and screenplay by Ron Naiswainer and Peter Askin. Naiswainer went on to write uncredited Jonathan Demme's Swing Shift in 1984 and wrote Philadelphia in 1993. We'll talk about Demme a little bit more in a sec. Directed by Susan Seidelman. This is her first movie. After this, Desperately Seeking Susan in 1985. Charlie, you recently caught up with this.
Yes, loved Desperately Seeking Susan.
Yeah.
Loved.
Yeah, it's good.
It was a perfect sick day movie, too. I was feeling like absolute hell, and then that movie just cured me instantly.
I was about to say, like, when you were saying that you've been watching all these down movies, I'm like, why don't you just watch Desperately Seeking... Oh, shit, you already did that. But she has other ones, like Cookie. If you haven't seen Cookie, watch that. That's a fun time.
I haven't seen Cookie.
Yeah, Cookie and She-Devil came out in 1989.
She-Devil.
That's a movie, yeah. Nominated for an Oscar for her short The Dutch Master in 1993, which I just caught up with and is kind of insane. And then directed the pilot of Sex and the City in 1998.
Yes.
These are very much...
I forgot that she did that. And I'm watching Sex and the City in order right now.
Yeah.
Such a good time.
Oh, hell yeah, it is.
Which is funny because Chris Noth is in this movie.
Yep. I didn't
you're right.
clock him this time. I wrote the outline before I rewatched this, but I did not clock him. He apparently plays a prostitute, but I did not
He's just
see
like
him.
some guy in a tank top in the van at the very end when everyone's taking over the van.
Oh, that
He has the
guy.
red tank top.
Okay. Oh,
I had my eyes out for him though, so he could easily slip by.
Just watching Smithereens the entire time. Where the fuck is Mr. Big?
Where's Mr. Big? New York's not New York without him.
But Seidelman, she did 3 episodes of the first season, and both of you, both Emily and Charlie, you know that the first season is wild compared to the rest of it. Like, it is very much like a Susan Seidelman movie for that first season, and then they just like completely get rid of like the direct-to-camera stuff.
The interviews with the random people in the New York streets.
Yeah, because like the Dutch Master, that short, that's very much like the pilot of Sex and the City. Like, where everybody on the streets of New York and everybody's talking to the camera. It's just very interesting. Starring Susan Berman as Rin. This is her first role. After this, she teamed up with Seidelman again for Making Mr. Right in 1987. I watched that. That is a weird-ass movie. And apparently was the uncredited voice for Rocky and The Adventures of Rocky and Bullwinkle in 2000.
Wow. I saw that.
That's also... That's crazy.
Like,
that's a movie I watched all the time as a kid, and then it just pops up in all sorts of random trivia of like, hey, Kenneth Lonergan co-wrote that. What?
Sure. Yeah.
The same year as You Can Count on Me? Okay, wait. Yeah, the star of Smithereens voiced Rocky? What?
I didn't look up who did Bullwinkle. I wonder if that would be some random like 80s indie person that was in like a Jim Jarmusch movie or something. I don't know. Brad Wren as Brad. Big stretch. His first role after this, 2 Larry Cohen movies from 1984, which we will be covering later this miniseries, Perfect Strangers and Special Effects. Richard Hale as Eric prior to this, The Blank Generation in 1980, and after this, Desperately Seeking Susan in 1985, and also starring in a quick little cameo as Cookie Mueller. She's in the little horror movie that they go to see in the theater. I thought that was cool. Trivia. Seidelman had a string of ideas for the movie in 1979. She called the screenwriting program at Columbia to find somebody to turn those ideas into a script. Ron Neiswainer ultimately helped with writing the screenplay. Production was shut down for 6 months after Susan Berman broke her leg falling off a fire escape while improvising a scene with Richard Hale. So
Goodness.
That's fun. Filming took about 7 weeks. Seidelman said that she took inspiration from the Fellini movie Nights of Cabiria.
Yeah, that makes sense, especially with the ending. That's actually my favorite Fellini film, probably.
That's a good one. And they
from
both have those like fur coats too.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Seidelman's crew consisted of friends and people with whom she had worked at New York University Film School when she was a student there. Everybody in the movie, save for Richard Hale, were first-time screen actors. Susan Berman was in a play prior. Seidelman performed a normal of the roles. She was the editor, co-writer of the story, head producer, and director. When the film was finished, Seidelman was able to show the rough cut to Jonathan Demme as one of the co-writers. Ron Neiswainer had just met him and would go on to work with him. She asked him if he had any suggestions for the soundtrack, and he suggested John Cale, which didn't end up working, but then he just suggested the Feelies, who gave permission to have their music used in the film. This was originally in the director's fortnight at Cannes, but the head of Cannes saw the film and wanted it in the main competition. It became the very first independent American film to be selected to be in the main competition at Cannes.
Very cool.
Which is amazing.
Yeah.
Good for her.
Yeah. Good for her. Smithereens was shot in 16mm, but Cannes does not screen films in 16mm, so Seidelman was told to pay $25,000 to blow it up to 35mm. Up to that point, the movie had cost $40,000 without even paying for the lab bill for striking the print of the finished 16mm. 2 foreign sales agents that had just started a company heard this conversation and said they would lend her $25,000 to blow up the film if they could have the foreign rights. That's just wild timing. And top tier, bottom of the barrel IMDb trivia right here. I don't know why this person cares. Under the law, it is illegal to lock a tenant out of an apartment without a court order. So if Ren actually did have a lawyer, she would have an actual cause for being illegally evicted. Who cares? What is this? This isn't trivia.
It's some lawyer watching this being like, that is not correct. This is really bothering me. I can see that. I watch stuff sometimes where I'm like, well, I know that's not right. You know,
I recently watched The Holdovers, new Alexander Payne movie, and there's a scene where they're in the Somerville Theater, which is a theater I adore, and I'm there all the time, and it cuts to the 2 characters walking out, and they are standing outside of the Orpheum, which is one of the biggest concert venues
like,
in
no.
Boston.
Like,
and I was watching it with my parents. I'm like, that's bullshit. Yeah. Like, I saw the Yeah Yeah Yeahs there back in, like, 2009. That is not the Somerville Theater.
You can watch movies there. Sure, why not?
I'm telling you, this is business. This guy used to play in a band at The Connection. Creeps. All a bunch of creeps out there. Everyone's trying so hard to be cool, and they're all a bunch of big zeros.
No, really, I was getting paid tomorrow. I can give you the whole thing at 9 o'clock. How's that?
When I'm getting paid next week, I swear to God.
And you say the weirdest things sometimes.
Because I did think of this idea to make some money.
Yep. Remember what I said about going to L.A.? Well, it's really happening. Big time.
Ren, you can't keep doing this forever. You can't just go in and use people when you feel like it, and then when you're done with them, you go and use somebody else. All you ever think about is yourself.
Is he nice?
He's not nice, he's great.
Initial thoughts. Emily, you said this is one of your favorite movies. I want to get your initial thoughts on what you think of this movie.
Yeah, no, this movie is amazing. This movie, it's so, I know a lot of people on the internet really don't like Ren as a character. She's not a likable gal, you know. But I see in her so much of like kind of my early 20s ish, wanting to, you know, weasel your way into the cool scene, wanting to get people to notice you, you know, and Susan Berman does such an amazing job in the character. And also just like gritty New York. I'm a sucker for any gritty New York movies from like 70s and 80s. The costume designs, perfect. The Feelies music, amazing. It's just overall, it's a good time. There's not a lot that happens, but it's just one girl's tumultuous life and her kind of like trying to find where she can not even belong, but just like rest a minute. I don't know. It's so good. It hits every time. Great.
Yeah. I saw this movie for the first time like 5 or 6 years ago, pretty much when the Criterion came out. I thought it was fine, but Seidelman continued to be a director that was interested to me, kind of like Penelope Spheris, who started out as DIY, very punk aesthetic, especially Spheris with her Decline of Western Civilization, which we're going to do the second part later in this miniseries. But pretty much just eventually both of those, you know, very early women directors, American independent directors that kind of got swallowed up by Hollywood to a certain extent, but not like even like big movies, just like where like Seidelman is doing like TV movies for Showtime at the turn of the century, and then like Spheris is doing like Beverly Hillbillies and like Little Rascals in the 90s. It's just like you made Suburbia, man, but you know, people got to eat. But regardless, it's just
what is Little Rascals if not Suburbia? They're the same movie. They're the same.
That's true. But regardless, it's just interesting. I'm not saying that that's a bad career choice or anything like that. It's just the parallels are very similar. Anyways, I liked it more this time around, and I had always wanted to rewatch because this type of movie is just like catnip to me. Just like you were saying, Emily, just the grittiness NYC back then, like stealing shots. You know, they didn't have any permits, you know. So I'm happy I enjoyed it more around this time. I think Susan Berman is fantastic in this, and she has the type of energy that can't be like taught or acted. So it makes sense that like she really didn't really do anything else, because it feels like this movie, she was made to just be in this movie. It's like this movie exists to find that person. Like if she wasn't in it, the world would have to create somebody like her. It just makes sense for her to be in it. What struck me this time was how everybody in this movie is like always lying about how busy they are. And Ren is always talking about appointments she has to make, and she has nothing. The Richard Hell character says the same thing. Everybody is always on their way to something, but don't know what it is. Like, I'm going to be moving to LA here soon. I'm going to go to New Hampshire here soon if that doesn't happen. The problem being that is like the Eric character does seem to have that to fall back on, is like moving back in with his parents if this NYC thing doesn't work. It's kind of like a little trip for him. Meanwhile, Ren like doesn't have contact with her parents, it seems like, and her sister and her husband know that she only comes around for money. So she's like really out here by herself. So yeah, she uses people the same way that they use her, because she needs to get something in somewhere, basically like scratching the day away to be able to have a place to sleep at night. And it's just like exhausting. But yeah, I mean, I like her a lot more than either of the guys in this movie. So as far as her being unlikable, I like that. Because it's like Eric is like the nice guy character, and he's like the most annoying out of both of them. Because he's just like, "Are you gonna sleep here tonight? Or are you gonna sleep here tomorrow? What about tomorrow? What are you gonna do?"
Wait, is Eric the rock guy, and Paul was the guy who like sleeps in his van?
Yeah,
right?
Paul's the van guy.
Yeah.
Sorry.
But he is annoying. I mean, like even when he like looks down Ren's shirt while she's sleeping, it's like,
yeah.
she's so
I mean,
creepy.
they both suck. There's no male heroes in this.
No.
Also, Richard Hale pouring beer into his hand and running it through his hair might be the grossest shit I've ever seen in my life. And I've seen
roll.
2 guinea pig movies, but sure. Bryden or Charlie, neither of you had seen this prior, so whichever one of you wants to go first.
I thought this movie was punk as fuck. I loved it. And I was very familiar with knowing it was on the Criterion Collection because, you know, and the poster. I mean, the poster's iconic. And I kind of love just from the get-go, like, that slow motion shot of her just stealing those glasses and putting them on, and you think that it's like the beginning of this character like truly gonna storm the streets of New York and like take it by storm, and she really doesn't. I thought that was kind of amazing how like I was already like, oh shit, she's awesome, and then I was like, but the rest of the world doesn't see it, and the rest of the world is like just completely, you know, just like whatever. But I found that kind of interesting compared to I'd only seen Desperately Seeking Susan, which is kind of like almost like a fairy tale compared to this movie, which is kind of like she starts off as the world views her as very abrasive, and it doesn't really get any better, whereas Desperately Seeking Susan was kind of interesting about Rosanna Arquette's character really finding herself. I found it to be, because I really thought that I didn't know what to expect, but I thought she was going to maintain some sort of like achieve her dreams somewhat, even if it wasn't going to be in the expected way. And I found it to be kind of audacious to put you in a character that is on paper as like selfish and quote unquote unlikable, as we've talked about, but I found that all the more appealing in the, you know what I mean? Like, they don't make movies about people like this anymore, and I don't think you can make this type of movie anymore. I mean, now it would be about like, I don't know, someone trying to get on TikTok or something.
Yeah.
I don't know. You know, like I don't know. I thought like what everybody's saying, I mean, the gritty New York vibe, the music by the Feelies, the performances. I mean, it's just such the energy on display. The filmmaking craft is just so raw and so fantastic. I mentioned this off mic, but I watched this after I went to a screening of The Zone of Interest, and I was like, crap, why did I like do this to myself where I have to like squeeze this in? And I was initially like, this isn't fair to this movie to have to watch this after that, and but by like, you know, half an hour in, I was just totally absorbed within this world. I mean, like, Susan Seidelman with this and Desperately Seeking Susan, I mean, I love New York City, period, but I'll never know what it was like to be there in the 80s, and I feel like this serves as like, you know, kind of an amazing time capsule of, I assume, what it would be like around that time, and the type of people that, you know, I mean, this type of punk doesn't exist anymore. I know I just said that, but you know what I mean? Like, I find there's a part of, like, it's fascinating how this film doesn't glamorize their lifestyle in any ways, and in fact it shows how kind of sad and lonely it is, and yet at the same time it does, like, I get the appeal of wanting to be with those people in those dive bars, and you know, like, there's something so but I like that it doesn't sugarcoat any of, you know, the sadness that goes along with that, which I can't think of a lot of other movies off the top of my head right now that kind of, I guess, like, what would be like an equivalent, like, I guess SLC Punk is trying to do that for the 90s, but I don't think it's, and I like SLC Punk fine, but this is like, I can see why this was such a groundbreaking independent film that led way to like a bunch of other knockoffs, and definitely gonna be watching a lot of Seidelman in the future, absolutely. So,
Bryden?
Yeah, Kevin, when you brought up the line about everyone like lying about like how everyone has like an appointment that they need to make, it made me think of the Vincent Adult Man character on BoJack Horseman.
Oh my
gosh!
gosh.
Like, I did a business. It's like all the kids stacked up on each other in a trench coat.
Iconic character.
Yeah. And also, like, when Ren gets kicked out of like the club that she tries to like sneak into and everything, or she's like storms out of the club and she says like, "Oh man, that place sucks." It makes me think of the running joke in Swingers where every time the guys go to a club and like they strike out with the girls, so I think, "Oh, we need to get out of here. This place is dead." Even though like there's like tons of people dancing on the floor. Yeah, no, I really liked this a lot. I was not. I think it's because I was more used. I had been introduced to Settlement as like a through comedy films, and this was like a little bit more of a pessimistic film than those ones. It is interesting to see some of the traces of like her other like later films, like in this and everything. Like in Desperately Seeking Susan, there is that kind of love, the same sort of love here for like background characters and everything. Like even if it's just people who like walk on for a scene and everything, it does like make the place feel more lived in. And you mentioned Jonathan Demme. Jonathan Demme excels at that and everything, trying to make his world feel as lived in and unique as possible and everything, where everyone like makes an impression. In the case of some of Seidelman's comedy movies and Demme's movies, those characters are people that you love, whereas in here it's Smithereens, a lot of the people are people you hate. Like it's like the kid who like selling stuff on the sidewalk and then tries to steal Ren's clothes when they're thrown out of the window, or it's
oh yeah.
Which is, I mean, that movie, that's such a harsh scene. That's like when you really, I feel like sympathetic towards Ren.
Yeah.
Well, and then she gets water dumped on her and all of her new clothes. Not
it's
her new
so
clothes,
mean.
but her newly acquired clothes that she got locked out of. Yeah, it's rough.
Yeah. It's like the moments of compassion in the movie that do come are very fleeting, but they do stick out. I mean, Paul does suck in the movie, but like that scene that he shares with the sex worker when she like comes in just to like have a little bit of warmth in the cold and everything, she offers like her sandwich and like he's just like, "I don't want to like eat your dinner and everything." He's like he doesn't really want to eat the sandwich because who knows how long it's been in her person or anything, but like she's like, there is like a sweetness to that towards that character. It's like, "Oh, my mom made this sandwich and everything." You do feel for that character and like that like the kindness doesn't last long. She feels she has to go back out there and everything, but it's nice that the rest of the movie is like so harsh towards its characters, and I feel like the filmmaking echoes this too. Like you're often viewing them from like very high angles and everything, where like they're just kind of like lost in the sea of people and like looking really powerless. And when I love also like like you said the gritty New York and everything, just like the sounds too. I mean, I love the cut when it's Paul and Ren sleeping in their van. And like it's like got this kind of like it's kind of like a high pitched din on the score and everything, but it is like kind of like a nice calming ambience and everything, and like a hard cut to like just the rattle of like the construction like waking them up the next morning. It's just like there's no peace from this world. It doesn't want them to be comfortable. And yet there is like just so much energy in the filmmaking. I mean, like with the Feelies soundtrack and everything, it does like have this kind of like antsy rhythm to it and everything, and like the movie like starting in slow motion, like it's just like itching to get started, and then finally by the end of the movie, I mean, I think the fact that it ends on a freeze frame where the character doesn't know, they're just kind of out of options of anywhere to go, it is like appropriately deflating in a way, because the movie has been just like constant motion like for the whole thing. I mean, Berman is fantastic. I mean, I feel like the definitive or one of the characteristic moments of her performance and for her character is when she's staying with one of her friends who I recognize. I'll look up the actress's name, but she's also in Moonstruck and plays, I think, a history teacher in the My So-Called Life pilot. She's like, like put on a record and everything, and she's like, it's really loud and disturbing the neighbors, but she's like dancing, and then her friend turns it off, but Berman just like keeps on dancing and everything. She just like wants to like stay in the energy and keep up this energy and everything. And it's like you understand why this character can be very annoying, and like especially if you're out with her all the time or anything, but like moments like that are endearing. And like the way people treat her, like or rather don't even treat her, they like look right through her, just like ignore her. That's like sometimes the worst treatment, when like people just don't acknowledge her. That's like the most dehumanizing thing that happens to her in the movie, and you do feel for her, or I feel for her in that moment. But yeah, no, I'm looking forward to talking more about this. It's a really strong film.
The actress who she's with is Nada Despotovich. That's her name.
Yes, she's also Jerry Maguire's assistant at the start of Jerry Maguire. She's the one who he tells to bring him his numbers, and then she says like, "No, I can't go with you. I need to stay for the clients." And it's like, okay, sure.
That's right. That's right.
A part of me at the end of this movie was like, I wish that Melanie Griffith's character from Something Wild would like pick her up.
I was just thinking that. I was literally like, someone should watch this and Something Wild back to back, because I feel like it'd be a good time. Something Wild second after this.
Yes, it would be. Oh God, I love that movie, and the Feelies show up in that movie too at the high school reunion. So yeah,
the video where Demme talks about how much he loves the Feelies on like the special features of that is so good. He's like, the Feelies, my favorite band. It's like you feel his love for that. It's so good.
I should probably watch Something Wild, right? I should.
Yeah.
It's incredible. Yeah,
You should watch it tonight.
It would be a double feature because I just rewatched Smithereens.
Oh,
so,
definitely,
okay.
you should.
I'll do it.
My friend made me for my birthday a birthday video where it was just a supercut of every time Ray Liotta says Charlie in that movie. And it's one of the best birthday presents I've ever gotten.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
Do you want to go through the plot, Bryden? Did you take notes on that, or do you want me to read off?
Yes,
okay,
I did.
Good.
Can't read them, but but they're here. No, I'm joking. I have them right here. The movie starts. It's not clear what she's handing out. Ren, she's run away from home in New Jersey, but she's handing out flyers. That seems to be one of her few business ventures that does actually seem to have like sort of results. But I'm not exactly sure what they're for. Maybe she doesn't either. I mean,
pictures of her face on it. She's self-promoting.
With the caption, "Who is this girl?"
She's branding.
I'm like, I don't know.
Attempting to be an influencer in 1982. Because she works. Because I think she. I don't
works at a
think she
Xerox
works.
place.
I don't know if she works there or just like hangs out there. But
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, she uses it. Yeah, I wasn't sure if that was where she worked, but it's possible. That's where, while she's posting flyers on the subway, that's where she catches the eye of Paul, who, in one of his maybe first, the first I say he's maybe not the nicest guy. He's following her, but not very well. He's like, being not being very sly about it. He follows her to like a club where she tries to like postures. One of her other business ventures is she wants to be the manager of a band, but the band just sort of like shrugs her off. They don't even really acknowledge her. Then she's thrown out and has the line where it's like, "Oh, that place sucks anyway," and it's like, well, just because you were thrown out. But yeah. And Paul asks her out, and she says like, "Oh, well, I might be busy, I have like a lot of appointments," classic excuse, kind of like when we covered Swim Fan when just is like, "Oh, I'm just like so busy, I can't hang out."
Emily, any Swim Fan opinions?
Yeah, I love Swim Fan. Of course, I love Swim Fan. Yeah, no problem.
Okay, Bryden, continue.
Yes, and Paul, he has like they're both kind of like in between places, both Paul and Ren. Ren, she's like shown sneaking into her apartment. She hears like a dog barking, and she sort of like starts like creeping towards her apartment, and it's revealed is because she has not been paying her rent or has not been able to, and she's eventually thrown out of her place by her landlord, who is very, very mean. It's one of those scenes where like you think that she's gonna get some empathy, where like where she says, "Look, can I at least just like get my stuff, just so I'm not wearing the same thing over and over again?" And the person says, "Fine, wait outside." And you think, "Oh, it's gonna be a nice moment," but then Loveless Love kicks in, and all the stuff like gets thrown out, and like the music. I love how Loveless Love is used as sort of like a running track throughout the whole movie and everything. Just like whenever the character is like in a real state of distress and like trying to like move to the next point, like as the song like ramps up in volume and pace, it's the best.
Yeah. Also, I don't know if you guys knew this, but it's totally illegal for a landlord to lock
Jesus
a
Christ!
tenant
It
out.
was you, wasn't it?
It's legal, and it makes me so mad when I watch this movie. I just, God.
Other than that, landlords are total role models.
Oh,
like
can't get enough of
we
them.
love, yeah.
She gave you your clothes. She even washed them. Okay. Yeah. Go ahead, Brent.
Yeah, and Paul, meanwhile, is living in the middle of like just kind of this like concrete lot in his van. He's from Montana, I believe. So he's like, unlike Ren, who's like, kind of like grown up adjacent to the city. He's like, this is very new to him. But he seems to be doing okay. I'm not entirely sure what he does for work. I'm not sure.
His job is van.
He does have a line where he says he does portraits, but he says, "I'm not in it I'm not an artist. I'm only in it for the money." That's what he says to the sex worker who visits him in the middle of the night. And then like they do end up going. He and Ren do end up going out on a date. They go see like a horror movie, which is like really fun, where like people are like getting stabbed in the head with scissors. And he tries to like put. I love the body language of Berman in this scene when like he tries to put his arm around her, and then like she just sort of like leans forward like with like her hand under her chin, and just like completely rejecting his advances. Yeah, I love that. And then that's when they're leaving and planning where to go next. That's when they run into Eric, who is introduced screaming at a woman and trying to throw her out of trying to like drag her out of a cab or drag his stuff out of a cab. And for some reason, Ren is like, that guy seems interesting. Let's go talk to him.
Hell yeah.
We all know that guy. We all know that guy.
And Paul is just like, playing Pac-Man by himself, at the arcade.
Yeah, we all know that guy. We all know him too.
He is the saddest boy to ever be playing Pac-Man. Yes.
Don't the Pac-Man sound effects come in before the scene cuts too?
Yeah.
I loved that. Yeah.
Gets you ready.
Eric, I mean, it's such... Like I said, it's like what's hurts most is not even like the hostility that Ren is like treated with towards the movie. It's just more the indifference. When she's like rattling off this tall tale about like setting a guy's newspaper on fire on the bus. Eric is just like he like at one point is like he's not even really facing her. He just like says like can I get another drink and everything. He just like completely interrupts her story and like isn't even really paying attention. But he like takes her home because he's like mildly attracted to her, I guess. And really, I also love like the apartment setups, how like often like it's just like sort of spotty sources of light, like Ren's apartment where it's just like lit up by like the one TV that they have on the floor and everything, really like kind of planting you in that like kind of cramped, dingy quality of atmosphere of the apartment.
Sorry, can I just have a question? Maybe this is a little too but like, has anyone ever been on a date in a movie where you have been in Ren's position where you're like, and if so, what was the movie? I'm curious. I'm just
I went on a date with a guy in high school to see Constantine.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah.
And I didn't like the guy, and at the time I didn't like the movie either.
Oh, I like Constantine, but it's been a minute since I've seen it.
I know, I might need to revisit it.
Keanu Reeves fighting demons, game over. 10 out of 10. That's all you need.
I know.
This is also, for the record, this person is also nice, and I think they have a boyfriend now, and they're a very good person.
Nope,
but one time I was with a group. I was with a group of friends several years ago at a midnight screening of Showgirls, and he just started to grab my hand, and my friend next to me looked over and like made eye contact with my hand and made eye contact with me and made eye contact with the hand, and basically her eyes were just saying, "It's Showgirls."
Amazing.
like this is not that. No.
Just overcome with the showgirl, with the emotional intensity of Showgirls.
The sex scene in the pool, it's just so it's just
sensual.
so romantic. Yeah.
Especially by that time, it's like 1:30 in the morning. Yeah.
Pretty much. It was a midnight show.
I can't think of that. I did take somebody on a first date to see the remake of The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, but that worked out actually, so I don't know. I was surprised it did, but she wanted to see it, so.
I like that movie.
I brought a bunch of friends to that around, like, I was in college, so we all were, like, back in our hometown for Christmas break. I'm like, let's go see this, and then at the end of that, they were like, Charlie, what the fuck? They were not, like, hardcore movie people, so it was long and dark and upsetting. And they were just, I think one of my friends was like, I fucking hate movies, and just left.
I went on a date. It wasn't even a date. It was, like, going to, like, a crappy apartment, similar to in this movie, where the guy put on a VHS of Wild at Heart and then just like ignored me for the entire movie.
I've just seen the opening of that. That movie opens on such a
I'm pretty sure I stayed for the whole thing because the movie's great and weird, and then I just left.
It's that awkward thing where you're just like, well, I don't want to be awkward and be like, all right, I'm gonna leave because I can just watch this at home.
I think the most awkward time I had a high school girlfriend, and one time we were gonna watch the movie Closer, and none of us had seen it, and she was like, we can watch it at my place, and her entire family was in the living room.
Oh my God.
And her parents went, oh, you can watch it in our bedroom. So I was on my girlfriend's bed, on my girlfriend's parents' bed, watching Closer for the first time. None of us knew what the movie was about. We're just like,
that's rough.
We're like 16, just being like, and I love that movie. The irony is, I loved that movie, but like,
you guys are like, maybe like we shouldn't be in relationships at all. But do you want to wait?
That's actually when I came out and said I was gay. But no.
Mike Nichols got his ass.
Bryden.
I have not had this experience, unfortunately. Unfortunately, why'd I say it?
It'll happen.
Brian's saying this, but he was at a midnight screening of Showgirls, and it was kind of awkward. So. It was a midnight screening of Swim Fan. Hell yeah.
Dude.
Where's that at?
Emily, because you're a fan of Swim Fan, one of my dear friends and people I used to work with said that they had like 2 VHSs growing up, one of which was Swim Fan, and that was the one they always threw on when they were sneaking out at night. So that she was just like, my parents just thought I watched Swim Fan like 4 out of 5 times of the week.
Incredible cover.
And just snuck out.
Meanwhile, my parents were like, yeah, he just watches Swim Fan all the time.
No, he's in there. He's in there for sure.
We wish he was sneaking out. Bryden, continue with the plot, please.
Yeah. One of the other things when she shows up at Eric's apartment, it's kind of like just like a funny bit. I love with the treatment of like the side characters and background characters in this movie, how like they're kind of revealed, like you'll be like in a scene for like for quite a while and everything, and then like you'll reveal that there are actually like more characters in the scene than you like thought initially and everything, which kind of like is fitting with like the narcissistic, self-absorbed nature of like the characters and everything. Like they're only really aware of themselves and not anyone else in their own surroundings. So like when Ren is like making out with Eric and then she just goes to the bathroom, she's like,
there's just some guy in there.
And she turns and says, "Who are you?" Like off screen, and it's like just some other guy like, "I live here. Who are you?" That guy's also a fucking creep in the movie. One of the nicer things in the movie is when it's Ren's bad judgment that her friend, when asking, hey, can you set me up with like someone that you know? She sets him up with that guy at the apartment, but she does save her from him when like he's getting her drunk. So that's good on Ren. I do love when
I think she also brought her over there because she thought it would be like Richard Hell's character would be there. There'd be a few other people, and it's just that guy there.
Yeah.
thought I could set you up with more than just this guy.
That guy's name is Roger Jett.
Hell yeah.
And this is the only thing he's ever been in.
Oh, wow.
It's probably because he was that guy, probably. That's probably just him. That's probably just his apartment.
When you're Joan Jett's brother, I don't know.
Roger.
Please.
I also love when she calls up Eric's place to see like, is one of Eric's friends there? And then like she like hears him on the other end. It's like, oh yeah, I know who you are. Like she's just like, it's like, fuck this guy.
Fucking Roger.
Right, he'll do. After she's hanging out with Eric, she goes home to her apartment and has her stuff thrown out, and then that's when she ends up with she goes to her sister's place, and her husband is the one, and her brother-in-law is the one who is like saying like, we're not lending you money no matter how nice you are. But her sister is at least a little nicer, where she's like offering like lunch, like says like, do you want some beefaroni? But the husband is like super callous, like saying like, like he doesn't know what she's asking money for. It took me a moment to sort of catch what he meant by this, but he says like, hey, I guess you're just gonna have to have the kid, meaning like I guess he thinks that she was asking money for an abortion, which is really callous. I do like how like I like that it was one of those lines that like took me a moment to sort of like, oh, like that is a really terrible thing to say. Then I think that's when she goes to find Paul, right? Who is like it seems like he's trying kind of on his way out, going somewhere, but then and I also love Berman's physical energy and everything, how she's like clinging on to like the window as like she's at the driver's seat window as she's like and running along as like she tries to like convince Paul to stay, and he only really stays because like when he tries to start his car again after telling Ren no, it won't start. And I love the shot where like you see like the side mirror, and then she just sort of like wantonly like steps into the side mirror, and you see her like in the same shot and everything. And he looks back and he's like, I can't give up on this person. And you do really feel for her in that moment. She does look really lonely, just sort of relegated to that part of that very small sliver of the screen. I mean, this is a hard movie to talk about with plot and everything, because it's one of those movies where it does have like a lot of energy and everything, but it's kind of like a lot of plot wise, it's like very stop and start and everything.
Yeah, it's very cyclical, because she just like kind of bounces from one place to another, from like her friend's apartment to her apartment that she was locked out of, to her sister's, to Paul, then to Eric, and then kind of cycling through until eventually she can't cycle through it anymore, and that's when the movie ends.
Yeah, it's a real. I mean, like I said, I mean, it's nice that this movie does like balance it out with like like lots of like grim sort of like self-deprecating comedy where the characters like are kind of making jokes a lot of the time, because like that is kind of the way that they cope with it. Like when I mean, this is much later in the movie. It's fine if we skip around, I guess. But like when she goes to find Eric, who's being who's being sort of like schmoozed by this industry person or someone who seems to be from the industry. She gets into a fight with this person by throwing Pepsi she throws Coke in her face
because she hates Coke.
Yeah. I love that she asked Eric, like, what's this you're drinking? You know, is it Pepsi? He's like, it's actually Coke. It's like, oh, I hate Coke, and then like throws it in her face as if like, but it's like that she was looking for any excuse to start a fight with this person. But then like when she's found by Paul, like, and this is also just like, I mean, this is also so great about like the lighting. I like that like she's like when she's shows up in Paul's van again. After that, like you just see like the side of her face, and then when like she turns to talk to him, that's when she reveals like the bloody nose and everything. And he's like, "Oh my gosh, what happened?" And she says, oh, "I got bored and punched myself in the face, or slugged myself in the face."
Yeah. There's also an interesting bit of like you think this is foreshadowing, and it never happens with Paul, where the guy comes up and is like offering him money for the van and stuff like that. And I guess it does pay off to a certain extent in that he eventually sells it, but you think like, oh, like he's gonna lose his van, or someone's gonna like, you know, attack him and like drive off with it.
He ends up selling it for the highest offer too, the 700. Yeah. Good for him. Yeah,
it subverted that for sure, because I was like, well, this isn't gonna end well for him or that van. And then but he also sold it to go to New Hampshire, which I assume you need some sort of automobile to get around in New Hampshire or something. Like, it's New Hampshire.
He has quote unquote friends in New Hampshire. I don't know. I also don't know what New Hampshire's like.
I've spent a lot of summers in New Hampshire growing up on Lake Winnipesaukee, but that was like my teen years where, you know, like it's like a summer place. Like, I don't know what it's like year round. And, you know, from what I understand, it's pretty conservative in certain areas. So I don't know. Like, it seems like kind of Trump land. Jesus,
boy.
If we have listeners in New Hampshire, I am so sorry. Because I really do love your state. I think it's beautiful.
New Hampshire, we love you.
but
New Hampshire, you're so sexy. Stop.
Don't be conservative. Ha ha ha.
I did the one place that I ended up renting. My family ended up renting out a house on Black Cat Island in New Hampshire, which was
it
cool.
haunted?
It was not. It was really awesome, actually.
Was it full of black cats?
No.
Dang, did you get your money back because they lied to you? It wasn't haunted. No cats. Apparently it was nice. Okay. This sucks.
I guess it would have been cooler if it was haunted, that's for sure. But,
well, I mean, yeah.
Sorry to stomp on your memory of Black Cat Island by being like, that fucking sucks, actually. Actually look back on that and realize it wasn't as good as it could have been.
Yeah, why did your vacation suck?
And then like my teen years, I'm pretty sure I read a lot of books like looking out at the lake and listening to like Death Cab for Cutie or something.
Oh my God.
And being angsty.
That was me like yesterday.
Hell yeah.
Oh, I did you go to their 20th anniversary show?
Of course I did, yes.
Oh, me too. It was
oh my God,
amazing.
It was healing.
At one point I was singing basically half of Transatlanticism. My friend was like, yeah, I was in front of you, I heard you. I was just like, God damn it. That was also a really nice show because I literally ran into like a bunch of people who we didn't know that we were all going to be at that show, and we all kind of congregated at one point, which was really sweet. Like, oh, you have these feelings from 20 years ago too. Oh.
Also, it was on the 20th anniversary to the day, the show I went to.
That's insane.
Yeah, here in Seattle, and he was like, they were all like crying and shit because they had like written the album like in the neighborhood next to us and stuff. And
oh my God, yeah, because Jesus, of course, yeah.
Anyway, a little Death Cab for Cutie break. I guess we can go back to the movie now.
But we do need to convert Kevin and Bryden.
Just hanging with a bunch of middle school emo kids. Yeah.
It's mostly I just don't. I might have been too young when they were at the height of their popularity.
I don't need your excuses, Bryden.
Also, Kevin, my dad got me into Death Cab for Cuties.
Oh my God, that's cute.
Yeah. He gave me Transatlanticism.
Amazing. Well, anyways, we'll have our own
Yeah.
discussion later.
Yeah.
It's also funny because I bet that if Ren heard Death Cab for Cutie, she'd be like, "This shit sucks."
Yeah,
I'm
she'd be
just
really
like,
mean about it.
But also, do they need a manager?
Like yeah, exactly. It's totally like a Paul band for sure.
Oh hell yeah.
Totally. Oh
He's
my
definitely
god.
listening to Death Cab for Cutie in his van in the passenger
Yeah,
seat.
tiny passenger seat, tiny vessels,
Oh my
transatlantic.
gosh. Just all like over and over.
Do we have any final thoughts or any scenes that we'd like to talk about from Smithereens?
Well, I mean, you mentioned, Emily, that, like, you know, it reminded you of your 20s, and I think that was ultimately what I found very empathetic, is like the aimlessness of being young and trying to find out who you are. And I'm like, I'm 32 and I still don't fully.
Yeah.
I was about to say, is that made for just your 20s?
No, but like I find the fact that, you know, that again, I found her an incredibly appealing character because she was so quote unquote unlikable. You know,
Yeah.
like I found I connected to, especially when I was younger, why you know that rage and that frustration and that angst, you don't even fully understand where it's coming from. You know, like,
Also, I think that the fact that it takes place in like this punk kind of like music scene also kind of hit for me a little bit. There was an article, I didn't write where it was from, but they call it's also a tough-minded sketch of an illustration in which women are expected to be perpetually silent, disposable partners for male musicians. And the guys suck anyways, though. And that's the thing. It's like looking back on like, I don't know, like my life. I don't want to get like too therapy here, but like the dudes always suck, you know? But as women in that kind of scene, you're like, yeah, but they're cool. They like, you know, they sleep on a mattress on the floor. That's cool. They're smoking inside with their like 2 slices of pizza in the fridge, but they can buy me beer. And then I'm a cool girl because I'm in, you know, and it's just kind of that. It's very sad to look back on. And yeah, it gives me a lot of empathy for Ren and her just trying to find her little corner, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. Doesn't Richard Hell's character put pizza in the toaster?
Well, and also it's like it's not even like on like a plate or in a container.
It's on the rack.
It's just like on the rack in the fridge.
Yeah.
This is my guy. Yeah. I get it.
I worked at an Arby's in a food court, oddly enough, in Massachusetts. So we had a deep fryer, and I had a friend who worked at Pizzeria Regina, and he would bring his pizza over and ask me to deep fry it for him.
Dude, that's sick.
like,
That's disgusting, but also all
it was honestly like it was one of those "this is disgusting and delicious at the same time" type of vibes. Like,
Emily, that article that was in Filmmaker magazine. I found that.
Oh, awesome.
I'll give that a read.
Also, I really like them when she meets the mysterious blonde girl that's been there, just kind of hanging out, and realizes that it is actually Eric's wife. And you know, she gives her a cigarette, and they're just sitting on the steps, being like, "Yeah, he fucks everyone over. You know, he has my money too." And then they kind of just like sit with each other for a little bit. It's like the only instance of girl bonding in the movie.
Yeah.
And the fact that it pays off in the third act like that does. Yeah. It's.
Yeah. And I also I mean it's you feel for Ren in this movie too, because it's just like Eric, clearly the least trustworthy guy possible. Like his grin is like so not reassuring. But like, you know, like I love the shot in the movie where it's after. It's also like when the way he gets her back, he says like, "I have a plan to get a lot of money. It's pretty dangerous." The plan, it turns out, is to just rob people at gunpoint. That's basically the plan. But
does it work? All right then.
Yeah, and I also
at least that guy sucked.
Yeah, he did suck. But I do love the slight way in which they differentiate between, you know, Ren and Eric in that moment. You know, Eric is just like counting the money, and then Ren, like, you know, is like sifting through his wallet and going like, "Oh, that must be this guy's wife and kids," and everything.
Yeah,
like,
she let him keep the wedding ring and everything.
Yeah, it's a really sweet moment. Like I said, like that stuff sticks out in this movie because the rest of it is like so harsh and everything. But I also love the way the camera like just like gradually, like as the scene goes on, zooms in on Eric and everything. Just, like Rand is like talking about, oh, it's gonna be so great in LA, you know, where we're gonna go and everything. It just starts zooming in on Eric, like just grinning like to himself, and like to the point where like Rand is only like the top of her hair, and it's like in the shot, it's like, oh, he's gonna fuck her over like the next scene. It's like, I mean, it's funny the way it's conveyed in the movie, but it's also like, oh fuck, you're dreading what's gonna happen to her.
He's like, oh yeah, I did tell you could come to LA. I forgot. Well, that's gonna suck. Yeah, it's rough.
I mean, it seems like, you know, at that point, the sort of like the way it ends in the movie is like, you know, she's like, Paul, like, he says he's gonna go to New Hampshire, and he invites her, and she says yes, but it's just like, oh well, actually, I'm thinking I am going to LA actually, and you know, he's like, okay, I can't wait around for you forever. You know, you can't just like use people like this, and it's like, you know, I mean. He's not, I don't know if he has quite the high ground there or anything, because, like, you know, it does seem like he's being nice to her because he's attracted to her. At least that's, like, motivating his intentions. But again, yeah, you're right, Emily, that, like, a lot of the movie does, like, have this weird double standard. I mean, the line that, like, the landladies have towards rent about, like, oh, maybe you'd, like, pay your rent if, like, you slept in your own bed for once or whatever. Like, they're, like, really, like, kind of, like, shaming her for her lifestyle, or making assumptions about, like, her lifestyle. We're not even sure that's really what it is, but also, who fucking cares and everything. Whereas, you know, like Eric can like have an actual wife, and then like, you know, be like taking home rent, and like, you know, whoever else knows and everything, and people are like saying, hey, you want like a record deal or whatever. Like they're like totally offering them opportunities, these shitty mediocre guys opportunities that she'll never get. Yeah, it's really sad. And or like the guy at the piano who's like singing really badly at the bar at the end of the movie. I'm like, why is this guy in the bar? He's terrible.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. When she finds that Eric is no longer there, and then her friend from earlier, her friend's roommates hate Ren so much that they're saying, we will not let you stay with us, even in like our friend's like corner of the room or whatever. She goes to find Paul, and this is when like they're playing like all of Loveless Love in its entirety. They've been kind of like, you know, teasing it throughout the whole movie to playing like just sort of the opening riff and like, you know, the first 90 seconds, and then they played like the whole song as like she just goes in like a downward spiral and is like, you know, thrown out of the club and like just like kicking and screaming and not really having anywhere to go. And then she finds Paul, and you know, when she finds like a pair of legs like sticking out from under the van, I was thinking like, is Paul gonna be like dead under there? Which I'm like, wrong kind of movie. But then it's just like the guy says like, oh yeah, this guy sold me his van, doesn't even fucking work. And I'm like, well, sucks to be you, I guess. And then she walks off, or she gets her little TV from the van. That's the last thing of hers that she has. And
they're all hanging out. All the sex workers are hanging out in the back of the van, and they're reading like tabloids about like Candace Bergen and Louis Malle. Like at their wedding or something.
And like telling stories about like pushing like someone's mom down the stairs or something like that. It's like something like, goodness, like very morbid. And then the last shot of the movie is like her just like walking in the middle of the street. I mean, that's also like the thing about walking, you know, like gritty New York and everything. People just like disregarding traffic laws, just like walking in the middle of the street.
Hell yeah.
Which made me think of Ebert. I think he talks about that in his opening line of in the opening of his review for Kids, the Larry Clark movie. How it's just like those characters also just sort of just are like in a world of their own, where it's just like, hey, I need to stop to take a piss, and like they like, you know, take a urinate on the sidewalk, and people are like, they're just like, they don't even care what the world is like and everything. That's the characters sort of exist in a similar space as this, where there's just like, whatever, they're in their own world. And then there's a guy who offers to pick Ren up. He does not seem very wholesome in his intentions and everything. And he's like, all right, fine, whatever, don't talk to me.
I mean, he says he's a nice guy, so
that is true.
That's probably right.
And I also love like how like he's like, he can't even like, he's not even like firm in his own. He doesn't even make firm choices. He like says like, all right, fine, whatever, and he drives off and everything. The camera keeps following Ren, and then like she finds she walks far enough that like she catches up to the car again, and it's just like, well, where are you gonna go? Do you have anywhere else to go? And then like she turns, freeze frames, and it's just like, it's like such a fucking bummer. This character is like run out of places to go, and it's like, it feels it's so. I mean, I don't know. Do you feel hopeful at the end of this movie? I don't feel hopeful, but
no,
yeah, which is
no, but that feels more honest. And,
yeah.
and not like I think like her life's gonna be shit forever, but it just at that stage in her life, it's just a low point. But also just like it feels honest, and I'm sure, you know, something will happen.
Yeah,
but,
it's also like we see her and we know she's gonna keep fucking like clawing her way out of this. Even if it's an endless tunnel of shit, like she has that. She is going to be like pulling herself through, and it's like this movie is such like. It's like not allowing her to reinvent herself the way that she wants to. And it's showing all of her like overconfidence and her like overcompensating and her loudness and everything, she's getting shut down every time. Whereas, you know, if it was like a man doing the same kind of overconfident, like, you know, it would be entirely different. She ends up getting kind of punished for it. But she's such a like spitfire that I think we can be hopeful in the way that we know that she will eventually get through it, even if there's some shit right around the corner again.
Oh yeah, definitely. It's like she has drive, but she doesn't know where or when to use it. So, which
something I can't relate to at all. Not at all. None of us.
I have love. I just don't know where to put it. Yeah.
God damn it.
Yeah. Because it's like Paul has like nothing. Like he apparently says he's a photographer. We don't see any of that. And then Eric is just like, yeah, I used to have a record. That's cool. At least she has drive. It's just like nobody's taking her seriously, or she just doesn't. Is not at the right spot, and it's not her fault.
She's not. You know, she's not the most mature.
Yeah.
It's not like she's perfect and the world's letting her down. You know. I just like when she's daydreaming about LA and she goes, "I just want to be in a swimming pool, eating tacos and signing autographs."
Hell yeah.
I think that's pretty cool.
Hell yeah. Thank you for listening to this week's episode of Almost Major. Please rate, review, and subscribe to us on iTunes. Please follow the pod on Twitter at Almost Major to keep up to date with what movies we will be covering in the future. Myself, I can be found on Twitter and Letterboxd at KevBonesy. Bryden can be found on Twitter at Bryden Doyle and on Letterboxd at JDoyle. Charlie can be found on Twitter and Letterboxd at CTNash91. Once again, thank you for listening.